There's deep concerns about what Donald Trump is going to do with tariffs. Everyone was worried about a 10% tariff or a 20% tariff.
That could raise costs for Americans on everything.
He plans on carrying them out.
Trump has proposed a 25% tariff for Canada, Mexico, and a further 10% for China. It's a pretty big number. The media is very quick to say that this is a bad move, but I want to break down the business tactics and the psychology play behind Trump's tariffs. I've been looking a lot into it, I've been researching it, and it's actually really, really interesting. And I think it's important in life in general to not take things at face value, to question them and to figure out, is there a motive behind this? Is there more to this than meets the eye? So that's what we're going to be doing today. We're going to look into the psychological tactics that are being used here, the negotiation tactics, and figure out what we think from there. But let's go to his initial post. He says, as everyone is aware, thousands of people are pouring through Mexico and Canada, bringing crime and drugs at levels never seen before. Right now, a caravan coming from Mexico composed of thousands of people seems to be unstoppable in its quest to come through our currently open border. On January 20th, as one of my many first executive orders, I will sign all necessary documents to charge Mexico and Canada a 25% tariff on all products coming into the United States and its ridiculous open borders. This tariff will remain in effect until such time as drugs, in particular fentanyl, and all illegal aliens stop this invasion of our country. Both Mexico and Canada have the absolute right and power to easily solve this long simmering problem. We hereby demand that they use this power, and until such time that they do, it is time for them to pay a very big price. His desired outcome is not to put 25% tariffs. That's not his end goal. His desired outcome is to see Mexico and Canada take measures to help the US to stop the illegal immigration crisis and the drug crisis. Within this post, he's already begun a lot of business strategies and negotiation tactics that are coming into play, and we're going to have a look at them. So the first thing that stands out in this is he's made an absurd proposal. That's called anchoring. Anchoring is a strategy that's used in negotiation, and it's when you start with an extreme or exaggerated position to shift the other party's expectations. But the key thing is that it's not the final offer. It's just the anchor. Research shows that people's decisions are heavily influenced by the first number or offer that they see. Even if it's extreme, it can shape their expectations for future negotiations. In one study by Sversky and Kahneman in 1974, they found that the first offer in any negotiation, even if it's a far from reasonable offer, distorts the other party's judgment. So when Trump proposes a ridiculously high tariff, he's not expecting that to be accepted. It just shifts the baseline of what will be considered a reasonable deal. In the anchoring experiment that they did in 1974, it involved a Wheel of Fortune style setup, and they had numbers ranging from 0 to 100, but it was rigged to stop only on certain numbers. For example, a lower number like 10 and a higher number like 65. After spinning the wheel, participants were asked to guess the percentage of African nations in the United Nations, and if the wheel had landed on 10, participants gave a lower estimate. But if the wheel landed on 65, participants gave a much higher estimate. And the experiment demonstrated that the random number, the anchor, influenced their judgment, even though it was completely irrelevant to the actual question. This can be applied in loads of different scenarios, like buying a car, where a car salesman asks for a much higher price, and you then end up paying more than you would have otherwise. The other factor here, which is kind of similar, is in Trump's book, he mentioned that he uses something he calls truthful hyperbole. He describes it as where he kind of exaggerates a truth for the purpose of promotion. In this situation, he has stated something that's quite extreme. He's completely aware that that's going to see quite a significant reaction from the media. So he posts something extreme, the media starts reacting, people start reacting, it's talked about across the world, and this creates a sense of urgency and drama. This leads people to act more quickly. So now that he's set up a sense of urgency and alarm, and he's gotten the media talking about it around the world, the result was that leaders begin immediate conversations with him. Within days, he's having conversations with the president of Mexico, the president of Canada. So he got his intended outcome. He's managed to get the ball rolling on negotiations within days. And this is before he's even president. So that by the time he actually comes into power, much of this will already have been negotiated, and he'll hopefully be closer to the outcome that he actually wants. Research shows that people are often moved by exaggerated statements, especially when they trigger an emotional response. This tactic works because it makes the situation feel more urgent, prompting quicker decisions and agreements. The other thing that Trump managed to do with this post is something called leverage. He prompted the negotiations to begin, but he gave himself a lot of leverage before it even started. By proposing these extreme tariffs, these punishments for these countries, he's placed himself in a position where he has a lot of leverage. He's built a position of strength to negotiate from. This is actually a classic tactic in negotiations where one party builds influence of power to secure better terms for themselves. Another very classic negotiation tactic that's in play here is called carrot and stick. Trump offers incentives, the carrot, but he also makes threats, the stick. So this tactic simply encourages cooperation whilst also indicating that failure to comply will have consequences. There's been a lot of psychological research on this in many different scenarios, in many different settings. And in the field of international diplomacy, it's been used quite widely with good success. For example, during the Cold War, the US employed both economic sanctions and trade incentives, the stick and the carrot, to influence Soviet behavior. Research by Morgenthau, who was a German political scientist, shows that such mixed strategies can effectively push a country towards a specific outcome whilst maintaining diplomatic relations. Robert Mnuchin, in his work on negotiation strategy, has shown that the carrot and stick method can create a dynamic where the involved parties see negotiation as a give and take process. Offering rewards can build cooperation, while threats or penalties provide leverage. Trump also uses a tactic called maximizing options. You'll notice he doesn't limit himself to just negotiating with one country. He talks to Canada, Mexico, and China at the same time. He addresses them simultaneously and he begins his negotiations with them simultaneously. He's kind of keeping his options open and he's increasing his leverage in negotiations. No one country can feel too comfortable because Trump has alternatives and he has ongoing negotiations going with the others. The other way that he's kind of implementing this maximization of options is that he's making sure he has more options than anybody else. He's talking to different people, yes, but he also, by going in with such an extreme offer initially, has left himself a lot more options to pull back on. He can walk back from the extreme demands to a more moderate position, and that gives the impression of significant compromise without losing the core benefits that he seeks. And this is also called incrementalism. Starting with extreme demands and gradually moving toward a more reasonable position, it's an incremental approach that allows Trump to appear flexible and willing to negotiate. In the end, he's trying to foster positive relationships with these world leaders, whilst also playing mind games with them and setting himself up for the most advantage and most leverage in negotiations. The two questions are, will he succeed in getting what he wants out of these negotiations? And secondly, if he gets what he wants, will it be good for the economy? So Trump's moves might seem extreme, but there is method to the madness. So the next time that you hear about tariffs or trade wars, you can ask yourself, what is the real strategy at play here? The same with anything you hear about moves that he makes, actions that he takes, things that he says. You can ask yourself, and this applies to anybody really, you don't have to take it at face value. Ask questions and try to uncover what is going on under the surface. I hope you found this helpful. If you did, please subscribe for more US politics and do share your opinion in the comments because your opinion matters. Bye.